My daughter, 18, and I watched as my wife and boss, Chastity, 25, loaded her suitcases into his car. He came to pick her up Sunday morning for a Monday meeting in New York. They needed to fly out that evening for meetings before mediation. Chastity, still attractive at 44 after 25 years of marriage, stood at 5'7" with black hair and emerald eyes. Despite gaining a few pounds over time, she remained slim with curves in all the right places. We married right after high school, and I worked to put her through university while studying online. Childbirth hadn't altered her appearance, and after law school we moved back to be closer to family, already with 2 children. Julie was born in her first year of law practice. I faced him with mixed emotions, disliking his smirk and self-assured demeanor. Though tempted to confront him, I held back, knowing he wasn't worth the trouble. He and the woman with him were headed to settle a civil case. Unbeknownst to them, I was aware of their alternate plans. A call from a stranger named Louise tipped me off. They declined our offer for a ride to the airport, opting for convenience with Michael's car. It frustrated me not knowing when they'd return. Physically, we were evenly matched, with only slight differences in height and age. Despite his attractiveness, I was prepared for an equal confrontation. My daughter Julie sensed my thoughts and blocked me from confronting him, wisely protecting me from making a scene. We waved goodbye from the porch, while Chastity likely anticipated exciting times with her colleague Michael in the city. Chastity's rise to associate partner at the firm 2 years ago changed our lives. And not for the better, as power seemed to affect her negatively, a fact known only to me. Louise, Michael's wife, reached out with details of his past affairs with subordinates, claiming this would be his last betrayal. They set a trap for him, and once his car disappeared, Julie and I retreated indoors. "Does Mom have any clue about what we know, Dad?" Julie asked. "That Michael's just looking to add her to his list?" "Probably not," I replied. "She's always been blind to the truth, even with her legal mind. Rumors about Michael didn't faze her. She never took gossip seriously. She's naive, thinking she won't get caught up. To her, it's just a thrilling escape from our mundane life. It'll hit her hard when she realizes she's just another conquest for him," I continued, "and worse when she faces the consequences." Julie regarded me seriously. "Why didn't you intervene if you knew?" "You know, Mom," I said. "If I warned her against an affair, she'd brush it off as jealousy. It'd just lead to a pointless argument. Once she's set on something, nothing can change her mind." "Does his wife know?" Julie asked. "Yeah, and her father too," I replied. "They're ready to catch them in the act. This isn't his first rodeo. Louise knows about his past affairs. Her kids are grown, so she's ready to end the charade of their marriage." "Will you forgive Mom?" Julie asked anxiously. "Not this time," I said. "I forgave her once, but now it's different. It's time to move on. Divorce was on the cards the moment she left. The image of my daughter's shocked face will stick with me forever, as she, like our other children, never knew. Discovering her mother's past infidelity must have been a huge blow." "Dad, you have to explain," Julie urged. "I don't get it." "You're the youngest, Julie, so keep this between us," I replied. "Before you were born, your mother cheated until she was visibly pregnant. If you weren't mine, I would have left. Luckily, a paternity test proved you're mine." Julie's astonishment was evident. This family secret was known to only 3 of us, kept for the family's sake. "Who is he? Do we know him?" Julie asked. "It's been 18 years since I spoke to him," I said. "Your kids call him Uncle Charles." Julie absorbed the revelation. Her father always avoided events with Charles. Her grandparents split Christmas between them and Charles. Now, it all made sense why her father distanced himself from her uncle. "Suggesting you text Uncle about Chastity's return in their hotel could stir up old connections," I quipped to Julie. I headed to the kitchen, brewing coffee with the local paper in hand, scanning for rentals and purchases. With Julie in university, Chastity could stay until she graduated. I needed to move before her return, knowing Judge McDonald prioritized children's needs, often leaving parents disgruntled. Julie's phone rang. She spoke quietly for a while. "Uncle Charles confessed to the scheme," she informed me later. "He sympathizes with you and wants to talk. After 18 years, I realized it might be time to hear my brother's perspective. Chastity's actions prompted me to reassess the past. Though I felt betrayed, I remained in the marriage for the children's sake. Wanting to avoid a divided home, I grabbed a bottle of Jack and asked Julie to drive me somewhere. He awaited me at our old fishing spot on our father's property. As we shared the bottle, he recounted his side. It contradicted Chastity's narrative, leading me to believe the truth lay between them. Ultimately, the truth no longer mattered. His acceptance of responsibility was reassuring. I now shifted more blame onto my wife, considering Charles more of a follower than a leader throughout his life. While intoxicated, our father discovered us. Seeing our fire, he approached with a weapon, thinking we were local teens. He escorted us back to the farmhouse in Charles's truck. Mom cooked eggs and potatoes to help us sober up, a familiar scene from our youth. As we ate, Mom called Julie and Charles's wife. By the time they arrived, we were sobering up. Mary, having married Charles post-separation, looked bewildered seeing us together. "Okay, you're reconciled," Mary said. "After all this time, we deserve to know what caused the split." I began to speak, but Charles nudged me, a familiar gesture from childhood, signaling me to stay silent. He was always better at spinning tales to get us out of trouble. But this time I was wrong. Chastity and I, Charles confessed, had an affair while she was pregnant with Julie. It was my fault being immature and stupid. My younger brother, more mature, caught us, and since then, he's seen me as dead to him. Hearing the truth behind our rift, Dad exclaimed, "Damn, if I were Clinton, I'd eliminate you." "What made you spill the beans?" Mom inquired. "Chastity flew to New York with her boss," I explained. "They booked only one hotel room for the entire stay, raising suspicions. Louise, Michael's wife, has private investigators on them. Julie knows about their plans, making it hard for her to see her mother's anticipation. Now she understands my actions." "I should have let you confront him, Dad," my daughter said, locking eyes with me. There was silence, so I continued. "Since Chastity gets to keep the house while Julie's in university, I need to find a new place before she returns." "Dad, I won't stay with Mom," Julie asserted. "Where you go, I go. We'll stick together." Julie was resolute, much like me, meaning what she said regardless of the consequences. "Julie, come upstairs with me," Mom requested, and they disappeared for a while. When they returned, they decided we'd move in with them. For now, we only needed our clothes. On the way home, Julie admonished me, saying, "You need to stop defending Mom. We're adults now. She knew what she was doing in New York with Michael, thinking she wouldn't get caught. That speaks volumes about her opinion of us." Upon returning home Monday night, we began slowly moving our belongings. Each of us took our favorite items: TVs, my rocking chair, and her makeup table with mirror. Chastity kept us updated throughout the week on the progress, which was slow. Louise called, suggesting we finally meet on Thursday night at Logan's Roadhouse around 8. I arrived in work attire without a tie, spotting her by her white scarf and introducing myself. She was strikingly beautiful, several years younger than me, with long blonde hair, soft blue eyes, and a slender, conservatively dressed figure. Learning she was 10 years younger and a kindergarten teacher explained her attire. I, on the other hand, worked as an HR manager at a nursing home. Louise revealed they'd be in New York for the weekend, having completed 70% of the settlement work. They'd be served with legal papers upon their return, prompting Louise to ask how I was coping. I mentioned, "This time was much better. We discussed it openly, unlike last time when it was unintentional. My older brother was the first over 18 years ago, before my youngest child was born. We hadn't spoken for 18 years until we made peace last Sunday, prompted by my daughter Julie. She made us work as we did in our youth, resulting in the worst hangover I've had in years." Louise chuckled, and I added, "What made it worse was our father catching us like prepubescent teens and dragging us home." Louise found it amusing, but remarked on the comfort of being with parents. I informed her that my youngest daughter and I would stay with my parents temporarily. Taking only essential items, I planned to keep Chastity's number active until Sunday, then block her forever. Before parting ways, Louise and I danced at a nearby bar. Despite everything, I returned home in good spirits, to be questioned by my daughter Julie, who seemed to know everything. The following day, as we prepared for the day, Julie kept teasing me with, "Daddy's got a new girlfriend." We had a great Sunday dinner, and my parents were already comfortable. It was special for my mother to cook for us again, and she was happy we all ate well with little leftover. At 1 a.m., a call startled me awake. Louise confirmed they were asleep when the hotel detective entered, with the whole event filmed by cams. She sent me a temporary copy of the video. I got up, dressed, and went downstairs to make tea. My mother joined me as I finished making a cup. "Is the water still hot?" she inquired. I rose to prepare her some tea. As I showed her the video I just received on my phone, I observed my mother's changing expression. Chastity and Michael were captured undressed under the sheets, their shocked voices evident. They appeared as deer caught in headlights, suggesting their actions weren't innocent. Mom promptly saved a copy to her own phone. "We're through with Chastity," Mom declared. I loved the shock on her face when served with the civil suit. "Julie and I blocked her number tonight," I informed her, as we were warned they'd be served with lawsuits. Mom took their phones, and I guided her through the process. Sharing tea in the middle of the night with my mom brought back fond memories. Later, I instructed the receptionist to block all calls from my wife, not wishing to speak with her. Around 11, the receptionist asked, "She's calling every 20 minutes. How can we stop this?" "What's your mobile number?" I inquired. She provided it. "I'm sending you a video clip. If she asks to talk to me again, request her cell number. If she gives it, send her a copy, and let her know Julie and I received it last night." That was the last I saw of her that day. Before leaving, she confirmed, "I did what you asked. Once she received it, the calls stopped. If you or Julie need anything, just call, okay?" I nodded in agreement. "Thanks, boss," she said. I kept it to myself. While my mom cooked dinner and Julie assisted, I briefed my daughter on the work incident. A text from an unfamiliar number came through, purportedly from my mom, asking me to call her. It didn't take long to realize it was likely Michael's number. "I think your brothers will contact us around 8 o'clock tonight," I remarked. "Your mother will reach out to them. They were probably already at the house and found us gone." "If they do, they'll be surprised," Julie remarked. "I left a note for Mom, suggesting you'll be making Michael move out since his wife kicked him out. It's amusing because I knew Chastity would never confess to our sons." "Hey, Dad, let's ditch our phones for a bit," Julie suggested. "That way my brothers will have to reach out to Mom to figure out what's happening." That's exactly what we did, making it a peaceful night for us, but not for others. Later, we learned that my sons visited our old home. Upon noticing my favorite chair missing, they searched the entire house. It became evident Julie and I had moved out when they found her note in the kitchen. Their calls to us went unanswered, adding to their frustration. Their mother claimed ignorance about the note's meaning and our departure. Despite their efforts, they couldn't locate us. Eventually, they turned to Uncle Charles, who hinted that perhaps I didn't want to be found given what their mother had done. Shocked, they overlooked questioning how Charles knew. In their quest to find us, my sons spread news of the breakup faster than gossip could. By the following workday's end, my secretary connected me with Jake, my eldest, who promptly got to the point after exchanging pleasantries. "What's up, Dad?" he inquired. "Where do you and Julie live now?" "Not much, considering how what was once wrong is now right in our world, and vice versa," I replied. "Let's steer clear of religion, Dad," he cautioned. "Just give me the facts." "Check your texts for what I just sent," I instructed. "That'll answer your question. Forward it to Jason, and if you want to chat, swing by Grandpa's after dinner." With that, I ended the call, sent the video, and notified Julie of my actions. Within 10 minutes, Jake responded, "Wow, I'll be at Grandpa's by 8. My parents excused themselves, leaving my kids and me to discuss our marital situation. We listened to their advice on my next steps. The boys didn't view their mother's actions as grave and suggested I move on. "We all mess up, Dad. Remember how many times you forgave us growing up?" This irked their younger sister. "You may be my brothers, but you're both idiots," Julie spat angrily. "It wasn't an accident. Mom and Michael planned everything. The hotel room was booked for Mr. and Mrs. Deuce Michael Truscott a week before they left." Watching my son's expressions as Julie recounted the events, it was a look I'll never forget. "We watched Mom leave our house that Sunday afternoon knowing she was going to cheat," Julie continued. "She made him pick her up, seeming apprehensive about what she was getting into. Dad offered to take her to the airport, but no. She wanted to flaunt it by leaving with him. We were probably the back of their jokes on the way to New York. She didn't know we knew, didn't realize we saw through their act. Julie asked me why I didn't intervene, and I explained she would have lied and denied it. Your mother's actions showed she was leaving the marriage." "This wasn't an accident, it was all planned," Julie emphasized. "Dad and I knew 2 weeks before she left. Michael's wife warned us. That's why we had video within an hour of them being served with the lawsuits. Boys, you need to understand your mother didn't just betray me, I addressed my children. She did it to all of us. I'm seeing a doctor tomorrow to get tested for STDs. All my children gazed at me, astounded. I'm doing this because I can't be certain she didn't have other lovers on the side, I explained. This might be the first time she's been caught, but her frequent business trips over the years raise suspicions about their nature. Dad, you can't be serious, Jason objected. There's no way Mom had other lovers. Given what we've learned, can we trust your mother to provide the truth? I challenged. Facts matter more than truth. If I test negative for an STD, it supports your belief. When my children remained silent, I excused myself, stating, I need to grab a coffee. My parents, who had been listening, agreed with my approach. Clint, you're handling this wisely, my father remarked. Considering her job and travels, it's plausible she had other partners. Mediations and business trips could easily provide opportunities. Even if she had separate numbers, calls between them can't be ruled out, I added. In a society where one truth can be another's lie, I can't blindly trust her words. As my phone rang, I excused myself to take the call privately on the veranda. Hi, Louise. What's going on? She told me about her conversation with Michael, Louise recounted. It didn't go smoothly. He doesn't grasp why she's seeking a divorce. Thinks she should forgive and forget. But she made it clear she doesn't want him in our daughter's lives. That's when he realized the depth of her feelings. He's clueless about the damage his deceit caused. Chastity's struggling now that she's unemployed. They'll be back Thursday, settling matters. I blocked her number for Julie and me, I added, and instructed the receptionist to reject her calls. She begged me to stop them, so I forwarded her the video you sent. Now she knows we're aware. Must be tough for her to lose control. Louise informed Michael his stuff's in the garage until he picks it up, I continued. Change the locks too, just to gauge his reaction. I had a heart-to-heart with my kids, I explained. Explained why I'm getting tested. Asked them, do you honestly think your mother would confess if there were others? Taking it one step at a time. Julie and I moved out. We wrapped up our conversation, wishing each other good night. When I entered the kitchen, they all fixed their gazes on me, anticipating my words. I'm taking tomorrow off, I announced. Got a lawyer's appointment at 9. Want those two served with lawsuits as soon as they touch down on Thursday. Tears welled in my son's eyes, realizing the gravity of the situation. My father spoke up, addressing Jake and Jason. Michael won't be the first, but he'll be the last. I'd have dealt with the first one differently. That's not true, Jason protested. Mom denied it until we showed her the video. You're clueless, my mother interjected. Ever wondered why your father never talked to Uncle Charles until now? They patched things up Sunday night. Charles confessed, Julie added. He admitted Dad didn't deserve it, but he did. Emotions ran high when I told Dad about their reconciliation. I put the kettle on as my children processed their mother's actions. Their future reactions would define them. The boys opted to head home, leaving the kettle boiling. With Julie in bed, I seized the opportunity for a heart-to-heart with my parents. Mom warned, they'll be watching you. How you handle it will guide them. I understand, Mom, I replied. I'll strive to remain composed and let the lawyers handle it. I can't alter the past. Except for drastic measures, it's beyond my control. Some might see this as the final call, my father conceded. You're correct. But in my view, chastity isn't worth risking jail time, I affirmed, echoing Charles's sentiment. My father beamed with pride. You're a better man, son. Your mother and I raised you well. At the lawyer's office, I detailed the events leading to our meeting. Her interest piqued when I mentioned my wife's employer. Did you know I once worked there? She revealed. They have a strict code of ethics which I still possess. We might consider suing the firm alongside them. While we may not gain much beyond legal fees given current judicial trends, it'll pose significant issues for both Brenda Ferguson. Let's proceed, I agreed. They're expected back from New York on Thursday's earliest St. Louis flight. After paying her fee, she expressed anticipation. Reflecting on this, I felt like David facing Goliath. The company she worked for was the largest in the area with 4 divisions. Our family doctor, who had known us for years, was surprised when I requested STI tests. Though unexpected, he agreed it was wise. Unbeknownst to me, my son Jake informed his mother about my tests. He candidly explained that due to Uncle Charles and Michael Truscott, uncertainties about additional partners lingered in the family. Despite his mother's absence, Jake reassured her not to worry, citing her history of deceit. "Mom, it's best to let things settle before explaining," he advised, wary of potential deception. Meanwhile, the company my wife worked for faced fines during their absence. My attorney pursued a $10 million settlement, highlighting the partners' dismissal as an admission of guilt. Upon their return, the couple faced procedural formalities, with my wife notably taking a taxi home alone. A doctor's call revealed I had a mild STD, which required reporting. Chastity was compelled to disclose her carnal history. The lawsuit made headlines at 6 p.m., exposing their actions. I updated Julie during her classes, prompting her to inform her brothers. My dinner plans coincided with her playful jest about my date. Louise greeted me warmly at Red Lobster, both of us dressed casually. "Louise finds you quite impressive," she chuckled. "My dad sees you as a rock star. If that doesn't humble Michael, nothing will." "The lawyer I hired sees this as a chance for payback," I explained. "She's leveraging her past HR expertise to sue them for policy breaches." "I wish I could see their faces tomorrow," Louise mused. "It won't be a good day for them." As we sat down, she passed me an envelope. "Inside are statements from 5 of Michael's former subordinates," she disclosed. "They detail how he coerced them into satisfying his carnal desires." "This strengthens my case," I remarked. Originally, the lawyer thought winning enough to cover her fees would suffice, but this could reveal a broader pattern of misconduct. Louise and I bonded over our divorces, forming a friendship. As I returned home close to midnight, I reflected on the events since Chastity's departure. While making tea, my daughter's tears caught my attention, prompting me to make her a cup too. I told her, "It's okay to let it out. Crying is part of the healing process." "I'm surprised you held it together this long," I comforted her. She embraced me tightly, releasing her emotions in tears. I held her until she found her calm. By the time we finished our tea, she had regained composure. Curious about my dinner with Louise, Julie inquired. I explained that it seemed like the beginning of a promising friendship as we got to know each other better. Julie had more questions about her, which I answered as best I could. At lunchtime on Friday, I delivered the statements to my lawyer. Later, she proposed turning it into a class action lawsuit, seeking a larger compensation for all the women involved. I agreed and wished her luck. I learned from a friend that Chastity and Michael had a rough day, despite their successful settlement. There was no acknowledgement of their achievement. The support I received from colleagues and senior management was heartening. On my way home, I withdrew $1,000 in cash and surprised my mother with it. She noticed, giving me a knowing look only a mother could. "I see it as a contribution to cover your additional expenses while we're here," I explained. "It would have cost me much more elsewhere." She looked like she wanted to say something, so I waited for her response. "This is a one-time thing? Agreed?" I nodded, thankful for her leniency. Chastity returned home to an empty house, feeling like an outcast after enduring a day of hostility. Both she and Michael were unwelcome. Her husband Clint and his attorney were suing the entire firm. Chastity couldn't comprehend how Clint found a former employee to represent him, someone who never would have become a partner. It wasn't just about the lawsuit itself, it was about Clint using someone familiar with all the legal maneuvers, putting the firm at a disadvantage from the start. After fixing herself a rye cocktail, she sat down to read the divorce petition. It dawned on her that both her husband and daughter were aware of their plans when they left together. Now, she had to face the reality of the end of her marriage. Feeling regretful, she messaged her husband and daughter, realizing the damage was irreversible. She hoped to delay until Clint calmed down, then perhaps they could talk. Jake's words echoed in her mind. Her actions now seemed deceitful to everyone. It wasn't worth the pain she was causing. While getting the mail, she found a letter from the county health department revealing I had contracted an STD. Overwhelmed, she broke down in tears. This nightmare only worsened with the revelation of past encounters on business trips, leaving her family to think poorly of her. Michael Truscott sat brooding behind the counter in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town, drowning his sorrows over Louise filing for divorce. Amid his introspection, he failed to notice a man taking a seat beside him. Suddenly, a commotion erupted, drawing everyone's attention as a fight ensued nearby. Amidst the chaos, Michael was struck 3 times in the face, the assailant's words echoing Clint's resentment over his actions. Meanwhile, I grappled with resolving the situation with my eldest son, Jake, one Saturday afternoon. While tending to chores in my father's barn, Jake's stubbornness became apparent. After consoling his distraught mother, Chastity, he insisted that I take her back for the sake of everyone's peace, despite the upheaval caused by her actions. Understanding the futility of arguing with him, I patiently listened until he expressed his thoughts fully. Jake, imagine if you were married, I began, and discovered your wife was being unfaithful. Would you still offer the same advice? His silence prompted me to continue. You suggest I accept being with someone who's unfaithful. Does that mean you see me as insignificant, someone to be walked over? His shocked expression revealed his realization. Distressed, I asserted, if you can't respect my autonomy and decisions, don't come back. With that, I left him to ponder his words. His youthful impulsiveness mirrored my own past mistakes. Now he faced the consequences. Seeking counsel, Jake turned to Uncle Charlie, who likened his behavior to his own youthful folly. Jake, your mother pursued me, Charlie disclosed. I fell in love, and it led to 18 years of separation from my brother. Remember, there are two sides to every story. Your dad is right. Your mother didn't contract the STD from Michael. She brought it home, showing she saw your father as insignificant. After all he did for the family, this was his reward. Fix this, or risk losing your father forever, Charlie warned. She had her chance with me. Sadly, her actions show she learned nothing. At the firm where Chastity and Michael worked, Monday morning was triumphant. My lawsuit dropped. They were back in good standing, lauded for their successful settlements. Despite his injuries, Michael persevered, sharing the ordeal with Chastity privately. Exiting the nursing home, I found Chastity by my car, worn out and weary. I treaded carefully in our interaction. Back off, Chastity demanded. Michael has his own troubles, thanks to your vengeful streak. I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about, I replied. He got attacked, Chastity persisted. The guy said he's your friend and will keep doing it. I couldn't help but laugh, finding it one of the best pieces of news in weeks. Once composed, I said, if I knew who did it, I'd buy them a whiskey. Your lover got off lightly. If it were me, he'd be dead. Then a text from Louise arrived, urgent and demanding my immediate presence. Another followed with her address. I quickly replied that I was on my way. You're colder and crueler than I've ever seen, Chastity remarked. Enough. Get your lawyer. Let's finalize this divorce. Without another word, I drove off, done with her lies and moralizing. Louise looked upset as I arrived. What's wrong? I asked, approaching. How can I help? Your dad's friend had Michael punched, Louise revealed, using your name. My grin said it all, bringing relief to her face. Aren't you angry or worried? She asked, relieved. I wish I knew where he lives to send a thank you whiskey, I remarked automatically, briefly hugging Louise, who didn't resist. Reluctantly, I let her go, but before I could apologize, she surprised me with a kiss on the cheek. They're both inside, wanting to talk things out with you, Louise informed, leading me to the kitchen while holding my hand. Spotting her daughters peeking out from a bedroom, I winked at them, receiving the same in return. Louise's father, a bit younger than mine, received my respect. Seeing the large African-American man, I smiled, saying, If you were of age, I'd send you a large bottle of whiskey as thanks. Extending my hand in friendship, he accepted, adding, Think before doing anything foolish. My father's advice saved me trouble at your age. With tension eased, formal introductions followed, and soon it was time for him to take the young man home, leaving Louise, her 2 children, and me. Introducing themselves, Livia, 10, and Lori, 8, shared their favorite restaurant, an all-you-can-eat pizza place called Zizzy's. Kneeling down, I asked, Would you ladies let me treat you and your mom to dinner there? Their immediate yeses perhaps owed to my casual attire sans tie. I just need to call my mom and let her know I won't be home for dinner, I informed the girls. What for? They asked curiously. To let her know, I chuckled, dialing. They found it amusing until we reached Zizzy's. Louise and I entered, the girls dashing ahead. As we settled at a table, Louise's colleagues spotted her. While she went for more pizza, one approached her. Are you Mom's boyfriend? Livia questioned. I'm just a guy, her friend, I clarified, unsure where this was headed. Did you two go on a date? Livia persisted. Not yet, but I'd need permission from someone special, I teased. Who? Lori inquired. From you and your sister, I replied, prompting laughter. You can, 'cause Mom already says she likes you, they revealed, as Louise rejoined us, finding us in good spirits. After fetching more food, Lori joined me, expressing a desire for dessert. Once we returned to their house, I thanked them at the door, and as it opened, they hurried inside, ready for bed. Feeling inexperienced with dating, I decided it was best to bid farewell. As I prepared to leave, Louise called out to me. Turning back, we faced each other on the steps. She surprised me with a kiss, prompting a reciprocal response. "My daughter mentioned you were going to ask me out," Louise revealed. "Livia got it wrong." I explained what happened while she was occupied with a colleague. We sat on the porch, discussing our feelings like teenagers, admitting our mutual interest but apprehension about what lay ahead. With September winding down, we planned to take the girls to the town fair the following Saturday before deciding on our next move. It was nearly 10 o'clock when I reached my parents' farm. Walking in, Julie quickly noticed my upbeat demeanor. "Looks like Dad had a big grin," Julie observed. "The meeting must have been important for him to be so happy." I filled in my parents and daughter on the day's events. Dad found it amusing that Chastity asked me to back off from Michael due to his problems. On Friday, my lawyer launched a fresh lawsuit against the firm, implicating 4 senior partners and 16 female sufferers, all jointly charged. The claim was hand-delivered to the partners' homes, leading 3 to be barred from returning by their spouses. Brenda Ferguson persisted in her efforts to learn Chastity's divorce lawyer's name. Mom emailed many of Chastity's relatives, informing them of how Chastity and Michael were served with the lawsuit, alleging this wasn't Chastity's first affair on her business trips, and revealing Clint's STD diagnosis. I was about to leave to pick up Louise and the kids when Julie remarked, "You're really smitten with Louise, aren't you, Dad?" "I've noticed that since the divorce began," I explained, "many of the friends your mom and I shared have faded away. Louise and I connected over our shared experiences, which made it easy to trust each other. It's too early to predict where our relationship is headed, but I'm open to the possibilities." "Dad, if you need dating tips, just ask," Julie offered with a grin. "Just promise to introduce us before it gets serious." It turned out Louise was afraid of heights, so I spent an hour on the Ferris wheel with her daughters, which they enjoyed. We went with the flow, enjoying the moment. Feeling hungry, we headed to the food area, with Lori perched on my shoulders. While waiting in line, my brother Charles and his wife found us with their kids. After introductions, we all sat down to eat. The kids hit it off, leaving us adults to follow along. After spending a small fortune on rides, Mary and Charles decided to host a family meeting on Sunday and invited Louise and her kids. Louise agreed to join us, but her daughters would be with their father for the first time since he returned from New York. By 6 p.m., the kids were exhausted. After bathing and tucking them in, Louise received a call from Michael, who couldn't pick up the children due to being in the emergency room. It seemed he had been punched again. Louise assured him it wasn't Chastity's husband, as he had spent the day at the fair with me and the kids. Michael wasn't pleased. Reluctantly, I left Louise's place around 9 p.m., knowing we'd start dating on Sunday. I picked up Louise and her daughters at 2 p.m. and headed to my brother's, where everyone was gathered, including Julie and her date and my parents. Charles's family was all there too. It was a significant moment for my brother, having me in his home for the first time in his married life. Mary happily introduced Louise and her daughters to everyone, and they were quickly welcomed. Things got interesting when my oldest son suggested we talk. We moved to the edge of Charles' property. "Dad, I messed up," Jake admitted. "I fell for Mom's manipulation. She tricked me. Uncle Charles and my colleagues filled me in last week." "What did you learn from this?" I inquired. "When it comes to family," Jake responded, "sometimes it's best to keep your distance. No matter what you do, you might only make things worse. They need to figure it out on their own time, not yours." "You're right, but it's tough because we care so much," I acknowledged. "Your mom and I will talk someday, but it's not happening soon with how she's acted." "Her behavior?" Jake echoed. "Yes, her actions speak louder than words," I elaborated. "Look at Louise. She endured a loveless marriage until she felt ready to raise her daughters alone. She showed patience until the time was right. Her behavior reflects her character. Your mom's behavior shocked your sister and me with its cruelty. Despite her words, her actions often contradict them. As our grandfather used to say," I continued, "if I'm not worth the truth, then you're not worth lying to, Dad." "Here's a tough question," Jake said sadly. "What else did she lie about?" "That's a question we might never have an answer to," I replied. "There's no use dwelling on the past, son. All we can do is learn from it and move forward." "I'm really impressed by Louise, Dad," my eldest added. But the more I hear about Michael and Mom, the more I think they belong together. Julie approached us, noting, "Your conversation is drawing attention. Maybe we can continue this later." "We're finished, sis," Jake assured her. "I just needed to apologize to Dad." With that, he walked away, leaving Julie curious. "Just a case of saying the wrong thing," I clarified. "It's good to see he owned up to it." Charles and Mary enjoyed a delightful dinner. Mary captured several moments with her camera, especially when Lori kept watch over me. When the water fight began, I eagerly joined in, though it ended with me soaked. Resting in a lounge chair to dry off, Lori climbed into my lap and drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, I noticed Mary and Louise discussing the budding connection between me and her daughters. My father joined me, remarking, "This little one seems to have chosen you. Just be careful and ensure revenge on Michael isn't your motive." I recounted our relationship's journey since Louise's first call. He nodded, acknowledging I should have heeded my instincts. He then revealed your mother requested this conversation. "Whatever path you choose, know you have our support. Dad, look at our society. A staunch Democrat, reminiscent of JFK, switches parties, wins the presidency, while conservative Congress members bow out. The GOP now echoes Kennedy's views, but the media spews hatred, branding him a traitor to democratic values. Despite his consistency, public perception shifts. He's still a Kennedy Democrat, but they aim to impeach him for alleged wrongdoing. Meanwhile, they support a candidate who admits similar actions. What's the message here?" my father asked. "They share the same disregard for truth, honesty, and morality as my soon-to-be ex-wife. To them, anyone not towing the new Democratic line is trash. Values only matter when they're behind bars, then they feign remorse," I replied. My dad chuckled, saying, "People ought to flush 100% of media and social network truths down the toilet. Finding honesty in real life is tough, but many are too dense to grasp that. It's astounding to see two factions of Democrats at odds. This truth sheds light on much. And considering his remarkable achievements despite fierce opposition, I ponder whether their animosity stems from his competence overshadowing their ineptitude. Most seeking re-election boast years in office without tangible progress." "Strong words, Clint," Dad remarked. "It underscores the media's prowess as a propaganda tool." On Monday, while I was in my office, a detective came to discuss the ongoing issue with Michael Truscott. It took me about an hour to explain what I knew and to provide a list of women whose spouses had discovered his affairs with their wives. "Officer, I suggest you speak with Brenda Ferguson and ask her for the list," I said. "More than 6 weeks have passed since I learned about their relationship. Louise, Michael's wife, called me to inform me of their plans. It had been at least 4 weeks since they went on a romantic trip. I met his wife for the first time while he was in New York with my wife. Since then, due to our spouse's actions, his soon-to-be ex-wife and I have grown closer and are now in a relationship that we are still trying to understand." "It certainly presents a different picture," the detective said. "Michael Truscott has his reasons for accusing you directly. He seems to blame you for ruining his marriage rather than his own behavior. I'm beginning to think he's the type of person who can't accept responsibility and blames others." After he left, I called Brenda and told her what had just happened. She anticipated this. Michael was the kind of person who would set others up, and she believed he was behind her dismissal from the firm. Then Brenda informed me that my wife had finally found herself a lawyer. I found out when I returned home to my parents that it was my mother's letter that made Chastity give up. Until then, she still thought something could be worked out between us. Once I calmed down after everything that had happened, I realized that Chastity must have believed I sent the letter out of revenge. On Wednesday, Julie and I took Louise and her daughters to dinner at Olive Garden, where my sons joined us. During the meal, I shared that Chastity had finally hired a lawyer to handle her divorce. Louise's daughters seemed excited about Julie for some reason, and Julie enjoyed the attention. Overall, Louise and I considered the dinner a success. 2 months have passed since the last family meeting. On Friday afternoon, I sat next to Brenda Ferguson, waiting to be called before Judge Donald McDonald. Across from me in the hall sat my soon-to-be ex-wife and her lawyer from the same firm. We agreed on the property division since there was no mortgage on the house. It was straightforward. Chastity agreed to buy out my share of the house based on the current appraisal and give me half of our joint savings. When called before the judge, each of us confirmed our agreement, finalizing the divorce. Chastity stopped me on the front steps as I headed to the parking lot and said, "I ruined myself. I finally admitted my behavior to our sons. Julie still refuses to talk to me because she thinks what I did was intentional. I only wish I had realized earlier what kind of message I was sending." "I would accept that explanation from our daughter due to her inexperience," I said. "But from an adult, it sounds self-confident and superficial." Louise's divorce had already been finalized. She got everything she could from him. Michael was to pay $1,000 a month in child support, $500 each until they were 18 and half the cost of their post-secondary education. Their house was to be sold, and the profits divided equally. Michael, for some reason, left the company and moved to another city to start his own business. It seems that his frequent unexpected encounters with fists wore him down. With his share of the company, he was set for life. My parents invited Louise and the girls over for dinner. What we didn't know was that they also invited her parents. Given the developing relationship between Louise and me, they decided it was time to start getting to know her family in case things got serious. Brenda Ferguson negotiated with the insurance company responsible for the firm's liability insurance, and it looks like the case will be resolved out of court. After paying her 30% share, we all received more than $750,000. We sat around Mom's formal dining room table, which was being used for the first time in years, just relaxing after a big dinner. When I stood up, I pushed back my chair and got down on one knee. Taking the ring box out of my pocket, I said, "Louise, will you take a second chance and marry me?" Louise, in complete shock, said yes. That's when the real party started. Mom had to call Charles and Mary and my two sons to share the good news. They arrived within half an hour. Amidst all the excitement, I noticed Lori was crying, so I walked over to her. As she sat on the floor, I sat down next to her. She immediately climbed onto my lap. "What happened, baby?" I asked quietly. "Nothing. I'm just happy that you're going to be my dad," Lori said. I looked at Louise, who had tears in her eyes. I think she could see them in mine, too. I stood up holding Lori and walked over to her mother. Everyone understood that this was an important moment of closeness. Livia came and stood next to us. "Dad," Livia said, "when Mom and you get married, will we also take your last name?" "As soon as the court allows," was my answer. "Livia and Lori," my father said. "From now on, you can call us grandparents. Okay?" My only thought was how much time my new daughters would spend with my parents. Both looked forward to time on the farm. My father would teach them to ride horses in no time. Later, in private, Louise asked how I planned to convince Michael Truscott to let me adopt his daughters and change their last name to mine. "Leave it to me," I said. Then we began our earnest search for a home. The plan was for Louise and the girls to move in before our wedding. About a month later, I showed up unexpectedly at Michael Truscott's office. His secretary told me to go in. I walked in and closed the door behind me. His face had begun to heal, but he looked much different. He had been punched 8 times. The detective interviewed all his former lovers and their spouses, but had no firm suspects. I decided to risk that Michael truly believed I was responsible for his injuries. "I think you heard that Louise and I are getting married," I said before he looked up. Michael's face went white as he looked up. He seemed to believe I was responsible for his injuries. "What do you want from me?" he said fearfully. "I need your permission, in the form of a legal document, to adopt your daughters so they can legally take my last name. This isn't just my wish, it's Livia's. She asked her mother and me if she and her sister could take my last name. This must be done in a way that legally recognizes us both as their fathers and allows them to change their last name to mine." "Why should I consider this?" he asked. "This will get you away from me forever," I said. "If you don't agree, you and I can meet often." It took him half an hour to type and print the document I requested. I knew he didn't care about his daughters because he hadn't seen them since he left for New York. His secretary, who was also a notary, certified and stamped the document. According to Louise, he only married her because she got pregnant. His family pressured him into proposing when they found out. I arrived at the school where Louise taught kindergarten just as she was letting the class go. I had to go to the office because they didn't know me there. I asked one of the employees to call her class and have her come to the office. She was surprised to see me. "Louise, I made a promise to your daughters on the day of our engagement," I said, handing her the envelope from my inside jacket pocket. "I think this will allow us to give them what they want." She took it, opened it, and read the document inside. How? She asked, her eyes filling with tears. Michael still believes I'm responsible for his face-meeting fists, I said. I used his fear to our advantage to achieve this for us. I thought we could arrange it so that on our wedding day, Livia and Lori could legally take my last name. Julie told me the night we got engaged that you always keep your word, Louise said, especially in front of a child. Do you think Brenda Ferguson will handle the adoption papers and file them in court? I asked. I'll call her office, I said, taking my cell phone out of my pocket. The secretary should be able to answer that if she can. I'll make an appointment for a time when you can come. The office secretary, a woman, overheard our conversation and said, Louise, have you set a date? No, I wanted to, but Clint said he wouldn't do it until he found a way to convince Michael to let him adopt my daughters. He felt that if we were going to be a family, the kids should get what they want when we say our vows, Louise said. We were able to meet with Brenda later that afternoon. She was delighted for both of us. Within 20 minutes, she prepared the necessary documents and printed them with the notary statement I provided. They were due to be filed in court by the end of the day. It took a week before we found out that my adoption and their last name change would be approved. All they wanted to know was when it would take effect. To resolve this, we held a family meeting. We scheduled it for Sunday because the movers would still be moving Louise's and the kids' things to our new home the rest of the week. Louise and I were at work the next morning when the detective investigating the ongoing attacks on Michael Truscott visited us to inform us that 2 arrests had been made. One of those arrested was another senior partner at the firm with whom Michael had slept, and an African-American man who still believed they were in a relationship. Both of those arrested were men. My brother Charles and his wife met us on Sunday. We were the last ones to arrive, bringing a huge pot of Boston baked beans that Louise had made. It was a potluck brunch. After the greetings, my future father-in-law asked, "What's new?" "We want to announce that in 2 weeks, 6 days before Christmas," I said, "if we can use the little shed for our parents' equipment, 2 things will happen. First, Louise and I will exchange vows. And second, the adoption of Livia and Lori will be completed. All 3 will take the name Walker. We will be spending our honeymoon next summer with our daughters," Louise added. "It will be either at Disneyland or Disney World." There was a commotion, but in a quiet moment, Livia came over to me and sat on my lap, saying, "Thank you, Dad." "For what?" I asked. "Because you love us enough to keep your word," she replied. I couldn't respond because the 10-year-old girl's sincere words left me speechless. I just took her into my arms and hugged her tightly.